So, who can tell me before we start, what is plagiarism?
Copying someone else's work.
Oh yeah, copying somebody else's work. Why do you think I'm taking time out of our busy day when I'd much rather be saying something silly or doing something more interesting? But why am I taking time instead to cover plagiarism?
Because it's serious.
Oh yeah. So some of you probably already heard stories about how Dr. Isom ain't fair, or the Henry Johnson board made me come to a board meeting, and then why they had me come to the board meeting if they knew they was gonna put me out anyway, etc., etc., etc. So long story short, we take plagiarism serious here, and depending on how bad it was, you're either permanently kicked out and dismissed, or you're dismissed and you have to repeat the semester. But yeah, some people we just didn't even allow to come back, period. So before I even write anything, I hope that I've made it clear to you guys that we really care about you here, and we're willing to work with you and do whatever we can to help you get these diplomas. So I'm saying that to say, if you don't write well, it's okay. Don't copy, get the F, then I gotta have you come in and have a hearing and sit with the board. That's drama. I don't like drama. Write the paper, do a bad job the first time. If you know this new to you or it been a while, take the D or the F plus. I'm just saying. And then I'm gonna write some comments on it, and I'm gonna say, haha, very funny, you know this wasn't passing, but I'm glad you tried. So here's what you need to do to correct it, give it back, and then we're gonna get you your diplomas. So the worst thing that can happen if you turn in a bad paper is I'm gonna give you a list of stuff to fix, but you still gonna get your diploma. The worst thing that's gonna happen if you cheat is that turn it in is gonna catch you. So somebody tell me what turn it in is.
What is turn it?
Turn it in. Okay.
Turn it in.
Turn it in is a software that most of the high schools and colleges use now. And so whatever paper you write, guess what? We scan it. And so colleges from all over the world compare papers. Some of the saddest things I ever saw, I've had people use papers. Let's see some of the places. University of Texas, University of Georgia. One person had a cousin, I think, doing college in China. So they was like, well, she'll never catch this. I don't have to. They make computers for that. We scanned your paper. And what it does, because y'all, most of you going to college, and they're going to mention it again there, it pulls your paper and the other person's paper up side by side on the computer screen, so we don't have to guess. It actually shows this is if they changed anything. They changed these 3 words, but the whole rest of the page is the same. We've had some people that kept the paper completely the same, and only thing they changed was their name, so the paper is a 99.95% match. And we've had some people that change, like they'll put 3 sentences on top, so it's like a 92 or something percent match, but the whole rest of the paper is somebody else's. My friends have told me, I've never had this experience. My friend said somebody turned in a paper and didn't even take the other person's name off the paper.
Oh, that's like,
Like,
they deserve that F.
right.
And that hearing.
Now that wasn't here. That was at the college.
Oh,
But
okay.
which makes it even worse. But yes, one of the students just added their name, didn't change nothing on the paper, and forgot or just I don't know. Had to be high. I refuse to believe somebody was not high and left the other person's name on the paper. But again, I know this is the era where people be like, shoot, I'm about to try to get over. Learn this now while class like whatever, $30 a month. Don't go to college where it's $30 an hour and you done took out loans or you got government financial aid because you low income. Because if they find out you got kicked out for cheating, they don't have to keep giving you them free Pell Grants. So some of them people that's going to Tri-C talking about, cuz I'm about to get this check. My project about to be laid out. I got a cousin, true story. Her mama went and bought her brand new everything, good furniture, because her mama, I'm not understanding why you go buy $5,000 and $10,000 couches and tables for your daughter that live in the projects and got 3 bad kids to tear up everything.
And bugs and all types of stuff.
Yeah. And actually the beds had to be, they did end up getting bed bugs not long after she got the beds. But the rest of the furniture, I guess, for whatever reason, they was able to keep. And so she gets her income tax and decides, yeah, this stuff nice, but I'm about to really lay my house out. I can't make this stuff up, y'all. I promise. So, yeah. Y'all know where I'm going with this.
Why would
So,
she do that shit in the project? She knows she would get robbed.
it's what people do. So, if your plan is whatever, you about to go to Tri-C and blow up, not if they find out your paper plagiarized. So then you gonna lose your access to all those checks and all that blow upism every semester.
So like bought books.
So
none of that with their money.
some do, but you be surprised. Put it this way. Some of y'all, if you drive past there, like the first month of school at community college or colleges that give you a check back, when I've taught at Tri-C and worked there, we had to come to work like 2 or 3 hours earlier or there was no place to park. Like students was parking all in the projects, hoping their car was there after school. It was people just making double parking. So you would think like the cars was parked on the curb with the parking meters and then people just made a whole nother lane next to them and they all got tickets because the street is supposed to be 2 lanes to drive. And they took one of the lanes away and just used it for parking. And then the other one was just the driving lane. And it was people that left school with thousands of dollars worth of parking tickets talking about I had to come to school. So, but once the checks come, you could find parking. So after the first couple of months or whatever, everybody get their check, they just quit coming. So, yeah. Sad but true. But anyway, we get on it. Back to plagiarism. So, yeah, I hear the checks are lovely. If you want to get them, write your own papers. All right. So, what we're going to discuss is a couple of things you can do to make sure your paper is yours and that you don't get in trouble. Again, here, I know that some of you never had good writing teachers. Some of you did, but didn't take it seriously. And some of you probably did, but it's been a few years and now you just getting your flow back. But whatever the case is, you guys know you have me. You can also come to class early. Some days I stay late. Plus you have your social workers, your counselors. There's too many people here to help you. Plus everything on YouTube, you can just go watch it 10 times till you understand. And then some of the returning students have done really well on these assignments and you've had a chance. That's why I purposely let you guys meet the returning students even though you're new because they know a lot of this stuff. So it's no excuse to not pass this. All right, let's look at the first thing you can do. So the first thing is you're doing your research, and I've given you a topic. Let's go with what we were discussing earlier, bed bugs. All right, your topic is bed bugs. You know a little bit about it, but not enough to write me a 5-page paper. So I give you a list of websites and places to go try to look it up. You cannot just say, oh, this sounds good, and write down what they wrote down. What is that called? Plagiarism. And I know a lot of people say they'll never know, but you have to look at it from the perspective of your school and the writer. Somebody, you know how sometimes y'all want to kick it or do whatever, but you can't because you got homework? Well, imagine doing that for 10 or 20 years straight because you're trying to write a book. So you ain't seen your kids. I'm going to be real. Sometimes you ain't took a bath. All you thinking is, I got to finish this research. This is my life. I got to write this. I got to do this. So you staying up late. You falling asleep, slobbing all on the books. You living off coffee for months at a time and maybe a pizza thrown in here or there. Sometimes people almost kill themselves and die to write those little books we use in classes. Those textbooks, that's why they cost like $200 and $300 each when you get to college. Because people be like, shoot, I almost died to write this. How much you want that to cost? $375 each. And I want you to sell like 1,000 copies of it so I could become almost a millionaire off that book. Well, $250,000 once the publisher take their cut. But the point I'm making is we just think like, ooh, this on the internet. Let me grab that up real quick so I can get this diploma. No. So first you're going to reword everything. And then second, you're going to, some of you have seen this before, but those of you that haven't, we're going to be giving out sample papers soon. But you're going to list the authors at the end of the sentence. Oh yeah, you want to write this down in parentheses. And I'll give you examples of how that should look later. But it's really not that bad. It's just like, let's say, because soon you guys are going to be working with other teachers besides me, but let's say I was teaching and then one of my other teachers was, y'all met Miss Haywood, so let's go with her. Let's say you had half a day with me and half a day with Miss Haywood. It's not hard to write in parentheses, these are the notes from Dr. Isom. These are the notes from from Miss Haywood, right? Same thing when you're doing your research. You just write next to each set of notes which one of the books or which one of the websites you got it from. That's it. So that whoever is grading or reading your paper, even if it's a classmate, if they say, oh, that sounds interesting, they know which one of your books they can go get to read what you read. Questions about the first two before we keep going? All right, well, before we keep going, just to make sure everybody really understands, if I said, I don't know, one of the boys in our class was tall, how would you reword that?
In my class, there is a tall boy.
Good enough. Um, Obviously, that was a simple sentence, so it was only so many ways you could change it. But you did switch the words around, and I could see you made some effort to not sit down and write what I said word for word. Same thing when you're reading a book. If they said, I don't know, the bladder is an important organ in the body, it keeps you alive, somebody reword it.
I learned that your bladder is the most important organ. I don't know. And it keeps you alive.
No, that's too close to
That's
what
too
I
much.
said.
The bladder, you said bladder,
Mm-hmm.
playing an important part
And
of
keeping
the
it
body
human alive.
function.
I take that. I take that. If you said the bladder is important to body function, I do want you to emphasize the part where I said it keeps you alive. So maybe your next sentence would say it keeps you from dying instead of it keeps you alive. But yeah, you're on the right track. Basically, you don't have to reinvent words and change every single word. You just need to change it enough where we can
Make it
tell.
sound like you. You know
Yeah.
it came from you.
Right.
Yeah. And people don't do that. So that's all I'm asking for. Don't stress. Don't make this harder than it had to be. And I'm going to tell you guys what happens. Here's why most of my students, with the exception of a few that we dismissed, most people cheat not because they don't know how to reword, they don't feel like it, number one. And then the other half waited to the last minute. And I've had some people say, well, I was scared not to turn anything in, so I just plagiarized. Well, here's how. Some of the ones that are lazy, they just give me a paper and the only thing on it that's theirs is their name. The ones that aren't lazy but waited to the last minute, it'll start out theirs
And then finish.
and it'll
somebody else.
finish, and it's like only one of these 4 pages was written by
And
you.
you can really tell because of the wording.
Mm-hmm. So, yes, once again, we use turn it in. It catches more than 90% of people that cheat. 2, what's the point in cheating here? And then you got whatever, 2 to 4 years of college where you flunking out because you didn't practice writing here. That's the purpose of high school, to prepare you for your career or for high school or college or wherever you're going. And if you don't get that here, you're going to be more stressed in college. And I hate to admit this, but I'm guilty. Because life was moving, I had a job, and all you just be like, oh, I can't wait to get to college, can't wait to get to, oh, I can't wait. And you just turn in like, anything, am I passing? I got to see, I'm that much closer to college, I ain't got to be by, and your mind is just like, I can't wait to get out of here. I understand that mindset. But since you're here anyway, you might as well get better at everything you can, because college is stressful when you just learning this stuff for the first time in college like I did. I did enough. Actually, by the end, I was making straight A's in high school. But I'm going to be honest, I still don't think I gave it my total complete best. I had a ton of jobs. In the mornings, I was a cashier at Dave's because I got out of school early. At night, I worked at Rally's. And then on the weekend, I was a cashier at Dave's. If something was open, I was working there. So high school was like a joke to me. And then I was turning in crazy stuff and still making straight A's. And then I got to college and thought I was the man because I made straight A's in high school. That was funny. So I went from straight A's to straight C's for that first year. After that, I killed it. But I had to learn what everybody else learned during high school. I had to learn it during college. All right, so moving on. I think we got rewording. Everybody knows what parentheses looks like, right? So Isom just said whatever we talked about. So at the end of your sentences, actually this would go, the period goes after the parentheses and the author name. But at the end of, when you read the book by Smith, you're gonna look and see what year Smith published that book, or Jones. And at the end of each sentence that you got from a different book, it's gonna say Jones 2008, Johnson 2010. Y'all get it? All I want to know is, out of the 10 books you use, which one each sentence came from, or every few sentences. All right. You need a reference page at the end of the paper. Oops, that should say paper. Let's cross that out. I was about to write page. So, I know at the end of those sentences I said we needed to list the author names, but at the end, the very last page, you're gonna list all of those people on one page, right? It's called a reference page. Two more things and then we don't have to see this no more. All right, so the first, how can I shorten that? What can be today? I'm just all off. Voila. Let's discuss these last two and then keep it moving. Number 4. Obviously, when you're writing this paper, you're not going to write at the end of every single sentence for a 4-page paper. You're not going to write at the end of every sentence, Smith, Isom, Jones, Jackson. All right, so how do you know which of the sentences you need to stop and write something at the end of? I'm going to help you with that. Basically, anything that sounds like somebody had to do research to figure it out, which lets us know that you had to use a source to learn it. Because unless you went to Japan, where this flesh-eating bed bug originated, and you found that bed bug on the patient yourself and studied it and wrote about it, guess what? If you didn't do that, you used a what? A resource, because somebody else did and told you about it. So, thank you, ma'am. Anytime you say something like, bed bugs were discovered in 1922 or 1947 or whenever it was, you're using a what? A date, which means somebody who was alive whenever your disease or your condition was discovered did research during that time or during that date. So you need to include at the end of that sentence, Smith 2010, because Smith told you what date that disease was discovered, so you could write it in your paper. Another time when you want to put an author at the end is locations. So if somebody said this disease was first discovered in Africa or China or Mexico, or they first discovered the cure for this disease in Europe or whatever, any of those times when you're using dates or locations, you need an author at the end of the sentence because that shows somebody did research. Somebody read me the next one.
Use quotation marks for the
No,
which
you.
one? Oh, dates.
I
What?
was reading symptoms.
Symptoms. I'm sorry.
All right. So, did any of us cut a patient open, take the heart out? Look, ew. Look inside the heart, notice it was discolored from what a heart should look like, figure out how to fix that and create new arteries and all of that. So, if your disease or your book tells you the symptoms of a disease, what we doing?
Right. No, that's something.
What we put at the end of the sentence with the symptoms?
The author.
The author and the year that research was published. Same thing for treatments or medicines used or anything else. So we got that one. Okay. Then the last one. Somebody read me.
Use quotation marks for direct quotes.
That's out there.
Oh, that sounds close.
I know. I was about to
I
say,
thought it
who
was
got
your
a phone
phone.
in here? Oh, no, I didn't. Mine don't vibrate. Only time mine might go off is the alarms to go to the next subject. All right, so quotation marks for direct quotes. All right, so let me, if you said ISOM 2016 said, and the only time you really want to use quotation marks is when it's so good you don't want to reword it. Like sometimes somebody will say heart disease means, and you like, I know we supposed to reword, but that sentence right there, like that one, ooh, that's just everything I would have said. So for those, or for whatever, but here we're not going to just, obviously I'm not a heart doctor, so our topic has to be about something else. So ISOM 2016 said plagiarism is unacceptable, whatever. So if you were trying to explain to somebody why you don't plagiarize, I mean, you could come up with all kind of words and go all day, but basically this is, or you could just quote me, plagiarism is unacceptable. But because you're saying my exact words and you don't want to get in trouble for stealing my words, you're going to put them in parentheses, which let the readers know these are the author's words and not mine. Mm-hmm. Now, you are limited to 2 paragraphs of direct quotes. So no, you cannot give me a quotation mark on page 1 and end it at the end of page 3 and say my whole 3 pages is a quote. I didn't write any of this, it came from my, no. No, you cannot give me a paper with 2 paragraphs of quotes per page so that you wrote less than half your paper. No. How many quotes can you give me in this paper? 2 paragraphs. That's all I'm allowing. 2 paragraphs allowed. This is the sloppiest paper I ever wrote. All right. Questions about anything up here? No questions. We good. All right, so let's read over this plagiarism contract, and then we can enjoy the rest of our day. All right, so we're all going to read this together because you guys know lately I've been a teaching machine, and if I read the whole thing, by the end, I won't have a voice. Second, because I know plagiarism is everybody's favorite topic, I'm gonna have everybody read so y'all stay woke through this whole contract. So we're gonna start with Ms. Ward, and she is going to read us the first two sentences, and then let's jump around a little bit. Michelle is going to read us the paragraph under the HJA Student Code of Conduct. And then India is going to read us the first paragraph under the plagiarism statement. Then Lakia is going to read us the second paragraph under the plagiarism statement. And Dominique's going to finish us off. And that should cover everybody. All right, let's get started.
Plagiarism contract. You will not be permitted to submit any written assignments in this class until you have completed and signed this contract and turned it into the instructor. 1. Plagiarism policy. Review each of the policies below. Then put your initials in the box next to each policy to indicate that you have read it and that you understand it.
So everybody understand what Ms. Ward just read us?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So no, you can't take this home and think about it. If you have questions, you can ask me on the lunch break, but basically before you leave today, I need this contract. If not, I will not be accepting any more of your written assignments, because we need to know that you understand that you cannot plagiarize papers and expect to graduate. All right, let's keep it moving.
HJA Student Code of Conduct Policy of Plagiarism. Plagiarism is presenting another person's work as one's own. Plagiarism includes any paraphrasing or summarizing of works of another person without acknowledgement, including the submitting of another student's work as one's own. Plagiarism frequently involves a failure to acknowledge in the paper or reference page the quotation of even a few phrases written or spoken by someone else. The submission of research or completed papers or projects by someone else is plagiarism. Failure to indicate the extent and nature of one's reliance on other sources is also a form of plagiarism. Any work in a whole part or in a whole or part taken from the internet without properly referencing the corresponding URL may be considered as plagiarism. An author's name and title of the original work, if available, should also be included as part of the reference. The student is responsible for understanding the legitimate use of sources and the consequences of violating this responsibility.
Okay, so let me make this even more clear. When you guys do your APA research papers in here, if you turn in a paper, even though I said kind of do the best you can, even if it's a D, I want to follow that up. That doesn't mean you can turn in a paper and just write everything you know about heart disease or high blood pressure or bed bugs or whatever your topic is and not list sources. If a paper does not have sources listed, it's an automatic 0 and we don't grade it. So I want to be clear about that. So in other words, if you turn in a paper and you didn't put the authors at the end of the sentences, if there's no Smith 2008 or Jones 2010, or there's no list anywhere to tell any of your sources, and you just gave me a paper is automatically plagiarized because you didn't give anybody credit for anything in the paper, so it's an automatic 0. Does everybody understand what that means?
Mm-hmm.
But what if everything is in our own words?
Okay, but did you go open the heart up, take it out?
No.
So if you're rewording their work, it's still their work.
Yeah, so even if we reword it, we still have to put the.
Because we still had to get the research from somewhere.
Even if you borrowing somebody else's car, you gonna get the ticket, but it's still whose car?
That first.
It's not your words.
Okay.
Yeah. Now you don't have to use, but it is a good question. You don't have to use quotation marks if you reword because it's not a direct quote. But you do have to give the author credit because you reworded their original work. Mm-hmm. All right. But yeah, no authors listed. Since it's very unlikely that any of us was the first to discover the cure for AIDS or diabetes, everybody in here should have sources listed in your paper. Mm-hmm. And even me as a doctor, I still use sources, even though I've written papers and done original research. I still give other doctors credit because we all struggled and suffered to write those books. So if I got to do it, y'all got to do it. All right. So the next part says, I have attended the in-class tutorial on how to avoid plagiarism. So basically what's up here on the board is the in-class tutorial, and I've shown you how to make sure you don't plagiarize. So you can initial those first two, and if you still have questions, you can ask me about those later if you don't want to initial them yet. But before you leave today, we need to have this handled. All right, next.
Plagiarism statement. Read the statement below and sign date beneath it to indicate your agreement. My instructor has provided me with information that I have reviewed and understood regarding with plagiarism is how to recognize it, how to avoid it, and what the penalties are for committing plagiarism in this school. If I had any questions about plagiarism, I have addressed them in person with my instructor to my satisfaction.
Next.
I will do anything I can to avoid committing plagiarism, including but not restricted to allowing
Sufficient
pre-preparation time for
preparation
time for assignments, saving electronic drafts of my assignments to each stage of development, and taking notes in my own words from outside sources that I use. Any work I submit with my name on it will reflect my own ideas, and after I will properly cite all material that is not my own.
I understand that there is no acceptable excuse for committing plagiarism, and that doing so is a violation of the student code of conduct. Should plagiarism, intentional or unintentional, be found in my work, the incident will be reported to the relevant authorities at the school. The penalty for this violation may range from a grade of F in the course to being dismissed from the school.
Okay, so again, depending on the severity of the plagiarism, you may simply receive an F and be dismissed for the semester, but allowed to return the following semester or the following school year. If it's extreme, we may just decide, this isn't going to work. So you never want to put yourself in that situation, because obviously we're not going to give you a refund for anything you may have already paid because you decided to cheat. So then you've wasted however many weeks you've already been in class plus your money. And here it's only a few $100s. You really don't want to do it in college because there is thousands and they don't give a refund either. I'll never forget when I was working on my degree in mental health, we had something called discussion boards, which some of you probably will use at your college. And so every student has to go online and post a couple of paragraphs about what they read in the textbook. So y'all know me. I'm posting like weeks ahead of time because I'm staying up doing all-nighters, drinking coffee, writing like 10 papers in one night. Talking about, I gotta get this degree, I gotta get this degree. I'm just hyped on life. Like my goals, kill me because I'm gonna get my goal, and that's the only way you're gonna stop me. Especially if the difference between me and tripling my salary is to write a paper and get a degree. Dog, you ain't saying nothing but what we writing? I ain't even gotta like the topic. You gonna love my paper when I turned it in though. And so we had to post all this stuff. And then you have to go read your classmates' posts and comment on each person's post. So I was reading somebody's and I said, what? Like I got confused because I'm like, where have I read it? I wrote this.
Oh.
Yeah, so I wrote the teacher, and it's dates under each person so you could see. I wrote the teacher. Now, our school, for my grad school, it's like $2,000 a class. Yeah, $2,000 a class. I wrote the teacher. She said I was already on it. You would never see her here at this school again. Now, we had to pay before we started class. And then I think like 2 or 3 weeks later, another girl cheated. Yeah, I got 2 people kicked out. Well, they got themselves kicked out because I worked too hard. I done sacrificed time with my kids, my husband, just all kind. Exercising. It's hard to stay looking like this. So I'm like, because like all jokes aside, obesity runs in my family, and I used to be really big, and I actually haven't worked out in months, so I just gained a ton of weight. So even now I'm like bigger than I like to be, but I'm working on some stuff. So I get it back together by summer. Yeah. But for me, I'm giving up my exercise time. I can't eat donuts because I know I'm too busy to work out. So I got to eat better to make up for my lack of workout time. You just stole my donuts. No, I'm reporting you. So, make a long story short. Is you laughing at me? So, but yeah, all jokes aside, if you need help, just come early and say, look, paper writing, that right there ain't my thing. Math, I could do that all day, doc. Writing ain't me. I'm not going to be mad. I'm going to respect you because you came and told me the real. Now, I'm giving y'all weeks and several days to write each paper. Like the last one, I gave you the whole weekend. So don't come in here knowing you didn't try to write it to that morning. Because I'm going to need to see like several pages of notes and where you tried to write it before you tell me I couldn't do it. I need more time. All right, questions about plagiarism so we can, yes, Dominique.
I just need to go to bed.
I
really wanted to hear this. I've been holding my bladder for a minute. I really wanted to hear this though.
Okay. I feel like I understood what you said. It's still going back to my first question. I still understand, but I kind of don't. So, is it like each sentence or every other sentence that we have to constantly write?
If in your paper you use a date,
Okay.
if you tell a location, if you're discussing the symptoms of a disease or how it was treated, at the end of any of those symptoms, you want to tell where you got it from.
Okay.
Other times, basically anything that's real researchy, if that makes sense. So if you said, you know what, and I'm slipping because a lot of times I like to put this. So I'm going to write one more word, y'all. I promise I'm finished. But another time is statistics. Can't believe I forgot that. So if you said 100,000 people died from whatever, diabetes in Cleveland last year, Now you know you didn't take the time to call and go to each house or call each hospital and get figures. So somebody else did though. So yeah, anything where they're telling how many people died or how people died. Cancer is a disease that affects the cells and then they turn on themselves. Anything like that, you know you didn't do. So that's researching. And at the end of those sentences, give me a source. Yeah. And then again, the important thing, I cannot emphasize this enough. If you start on this early enough as you're going through it, you can just highlight some of the sentences in your notes or put a star next to it or whatever and say, this one right here, I think it might need a source, but I'm not sure. Can you tell me? You guys can come get help. So just write the paper and then ask me, am I on the right track? But most people don't, because they wait till the day before it's due, and then I'm not going to grade it then. But if you come to me a week early, especially when I'm giving you 2 and 3 weeks sometimes, or at least a week to write the paper, you have time to come to me if you start early enough and show me what your questions are.
I better pass this unfortunately. My mom was so upset with me. She's an English teacher.
Oh, yeah.
I was typing my paper yesterday, and she was like, do you need help? You want me to prepare anything? I was like, no, Mom.
Well, that's good. You still got extra, lessons at home with your mom. She gonna help you.
Oh, you in trouble. I did not know your mom was an English teacher.
She was like, I'm not playing, do you need help? I was like, no, I'm fine. Just go.
Go somewhere.
Right.
All right, so Michelle, the only thing you missed, Dominique had a great question. She really wanted to know again, which sentences needed the author and the year at the end to make sure she wasn't plagiarizing. And I'm glad she asked me again, because it jarred my memory, something I always write up here and didn't think of this time. And that was statistics goes along with the rest of the stuff in this list. So if, for example, you said 100,000 people in Florida died of snake bite or shark bite or whatever.
Right.
Because that's a statistic and somebody did research to figure out that number, definitely at the end of that sentence, you're going to need an author and a year.
Okay.
Or if you said such and such medicine has killed more people than it helped, so they took it off the market. Anything like that that you know somebody did research. Or 80% of the people who take, what do they say, aspirin, didn't have a second heart attack after they had the first one. Then that's a statistic because it's 80%. It's telling a percentage.
And you said it should be?
Same thing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. You need to get that author credit because they figured out that it was 80% of people,
right? Which
means they did a study of all the people who had a first heart attack to see how many had a second one. And out of all those people, only 20% did. The other 80% stayed healthy because of that aspirin they took every day.
Okay.
Don't worry, we're going to be practicing this. I'm going to be repeating some of it. I'm not standing here to do this whole lecture again. Trust me on that. But as you guys have questions or I see certain parts in your paper, I'm going to remind you and say, hey, you got a C, but you could have had a B because you forgot number 1 or number 3. And I'll help you along. As long as you're working. The important thing is, as you work, I can show you where to get better. If you're not turning in the work, I can't tell you where or how to get better. All right.
I got a question. Did you ever check our resumes? I never got my resume that day.
Y'all did on Friday, so today the first day back. Okay. But I have a time slot in there Thursday where we're going over the returned assignments.
Right.
Because I like to sit down and go through all the papers and have everybody ask me questions. Other questions? All right, we have one more thing to do. It's 11:30, but I'm going to get us to lunch by 12. So I need everybody to put everything away except something to write with.
Should we get these down?